Welcome to Speak Free with Matty G, the podcast that celebrates free speech, truth, and open discussion. All right, welcome to episode 9 of Speak Free with Matty G. I'm joined here today by my good friend Jayden Snowden. How are you, brother?
I'm great, bro. Excited to be here. How are you?
I'm good. So we're going to talk about some deep shit today. We've been waiting to do this episode for a little bit now, which I'm excited about. So we're going to cover sort of mental health, trauma, personal experiences relating to that, and the subconscious mind, which I'm keen to talk about because I don't know that much.
Very interesting.
So you've done your study, you know what you're talking about, you know your shit. So let's get into it. Thanks everyone for tuning in, by the way. I should say that more often, but yeah, I had a lot of streams on the last episode, so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, so let's start with, I guess we'll cover the subconscious mind first, because that's what you really want to get into. So if you could just tell me a bit about what sort of things you've been looking at, what you've been studying, things you've learnt. Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, it's a very, very big topic to answer, and you kind of got to go through like the process of elimination to get down to the nitty gritty of like what it actually is. And I can start off with telling you what it's not. It's not your conscious mind. It's not the thing that you use to think kind of daily and make those intricate like kind of decisions. Your conscious mind, I think, accounts for maybe 5% of all the data and information that come into you. And I'm not talking about like fun facts or whatever. Your perception of yourself, your perception of the world, your perception of other people, relationships, friendships, all like the philosophical like side of life, all of that gets stored into your subconscious. Everything that you're not currently thinking in this moment and you can bring up is stored in your subconscious. So it's a very, very big vault of things, and it's very sensitive from birth until the age of 7. And that's where a lot of our programs on relationships, on friendships, all the stuff I mentioned before, even things like money, career, passions, how you should live your life and all that, that's all stored in the subconscious mind. And without addressing the subconscious mind, I guess it's kind of a bold take, but I think it's pretty well impossible to change and progress as a person without addressing that.
Yeah, wow. No, that's really interesting stuff, because I guess people who don't study it, people who don't really look into it, you know, most people, well, a lot of people just live life and don't really think too much about anything. But I guess to them, you know, it's just your brain, But when you actually look into it, how it fucking works. And I suppose I spoke to Ricky a little bit about this too in episode 2, if anyone wants to check it out. But yeah, so it's really interesting to, I guess your subconscious mind, you know, it's like the inner working. It's like the factory of your brain, isn't it? Yeah. Basically,
it's like the Narnia of you.
Yeah. So what have you learned? Like, what are some interesting things you've learned that have helped you grow? I guess helped you evolve as a person. Yeah.
Well, to start off with the main thing, and speaking of the podcast with Ricky, the main 2 realizations I would say, which is just like, without these, you can't progress in anything with the subconscious mind, is realizing that your thoughts are not always true. Not every thought is authentic, like intuition that comes from your like authentic self or higher self. Whether you want that to be spiritual or you're just looking at a purely like atheist side of like self-development, everybody has this version of themselves which they see as like their kind of true self. And a lot of time that gets suppressed due to, as we said, the subconscious mind and different programs that come in. Like I think there's a quote, Tony Robbins says like, people will abandon their morals and values to meet their needs. And that's so true. You see that in relationships and all that. It's like, maybe due to whatever trauma when they're younger, they love this person, they enjoy being around them and all that, but they have this subconscious need of like maybe, and this works for both sexes, I'll just use a female for example, like if I'm not getting attention from men, then I'm not valuable. And this one man doesn't cut it. And this isn't consciously, not many people would be thinking of that, but it's kind of this background things which run shit, and it ruins your whole relationship based off the fact that you can't develop that emotional intelligence and be like, hey, maybe this thought isn't true. Maybe this thought is from something far back in my childhood or whatever. So to root back to your original question, as soon as you realize and stop respecting every thought to be true, then you can start to dive into what's true, what's not, what's authentic to you, whether you picked it up. Because as I said before, the subconscious mind downloads everything. You could have something that comes from an ad that you saw when you were 6, and it puts such a big staple like into your personality and all that. Like there's a joke, and it's like one gay joke from your uncle and your dancing career is done. It's like someone who's passionate about it,
Yeah.
and you get someone who's ignorant and says something like that, and it just ruins it.
Yeah, no, that's actually, I read this thing, it was like a thread on fucking whatever it was, Tumblr or fucking something or other.
Yeah, yeah.
You know how they pull it up on like
Yeah,
Facebook.
yeah.
But it was really good. It was about the axe and the tree. And it's like an analogy basically on, it was this person brought up to like their mum or their dad, or I think it was their mum, and was like, hey, do you remember when you fucking said this a bit, like to me?
Yeah.
And it was a really hurtful thing that impacted them significantly. And the person, the mum, or I think it was the mum at the time, I could be wrong, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But the parent was like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. Could not remember it. And it was about like the axe and the tree. So the axe won't remember how many trees it's cut down, but the tree will always remember getting cut down by the axe, you know? And that's sort of like an interesting thing. And that's how I guess the subconscious comes into it, is that it really does hold true in your brain, and it does affect you, and you might not realize it at the time, but you'll remember, you know, there was a certain moment here and that. And if you really start digging into it, people are really good at covering up their shit and not thinking about it, and holding that shit down. I guess we'll get into that a bit later with trauma, because it does all tie in with each other. But yeah, you know, I guess people, they don't really, they don't like to deal with the shit, you know?
Yeah. Well,
and most people don't deal with the shit ever.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're always thinking, why is this happening for me? Why does this always happen to me? You know, I'm not saying I'm better than that. I'm fucking guilty of this myself a lot of the time. Especially with other people, I'll have the same sort of issues with people and not realize like, fuck, it's actually me. That's the fucking problem.
yeah.
But, you know, I guess that's relatable to a lot of people, is that, you know, if you don't deal with the root of the problem, which is in your subconscious, you can't move forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, there's an analogy that like one of the people that I watch, he says that like we go through life, because there is such like self-development is now I'm pretty sure it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It is huge. And it's like, why as a society do we have such a strong need to develop? And I think deep down it's the root like cause of not accepting ourselves. Obviously, you want to I would say not develop yourself, but kind of, my whole thing is I want people to become their authentic selves.
Yeah.
Who you truly are. I feel like once you start to do that, you don't need this constant competition in your head of like, damn, I should go for a run, or I should stick to this diet or whatever. Once you become your authentic self, you let go of those those poor programs from when you were younger. You're just naturally you. It's like, oh, I want to get fit. You just get fit. Because the resistance to that is trauma. It's like, I don't identify, and this is something we'll get into later on. Your brain doesn't want you to develop. It doesn't want you to get better. It wants you to stay alive. And familiar equals survival. If you stay in the same place you are, there's a high chance that you won't die. And it's all related to evolution and, as I said, that survival instinct. For example, if someone who they don't picture themselves as confident or expressive or whatever, if they were to go up to a group of people and just start talking and all that, subconsciously, obviously consciously, there's a high chance you're not going to die. But subconsciously, with these survival instincts, you don't know what's going to happen. In the past, you've done something like that and you've had trauma around it, which has shown you, hey, we don't do that.
Yeah.
And once you release all this type of stuff, you don't need to like, okay, I don't need to pump myself up to go to talk to this girl or whatever. It's just natural expression.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Because yeah, it's just these tiny little things that might seem minute at the time, but really have an impact. I remember it's such a stupid story, but it's fucking pretty funny. I used to work at the cinemas at Rouse Hill, right?
Yeah.
And during like Christmas time, it was fucking fucked, and like the parking was crazy. And so I had to, like, the staff parking was put down the other end. It was just a fucking nightmare. So anyway, as I'm walking out, I think I see this guy walking towards me that I thought I knew.
Yeah.
And I fucking did not know him, but I didn't know until I said hello. And I was like, what's going on, bro? And he was like, took out his AirPods. He had AirPods in.
Oh, no.
And he's like, hey, bro, how are you? And then I was like, oh fuck, I don't it's not who I thought it was.
How did you resolve that?
So I'm like, I just went to the car
Oh,
and
just
I fucking called like 3 people and I was like, the most embarrassing fucking thing just happened to me. And I do not get embarrassed easy.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
anyone who knows me knows I don't get embarrassed easy. Like I'll cop things pretty easily. Like if I say a joke and no one laughs, I'm like, oh fuck, whatever. I just won't use that one again.
Yeah, yeah.
But this really fucked me up. Like really, really fucked me up. And literally since then, I do not say hello first to people.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I mean, not unless I'm like out, you know, at the fucking fits or some
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Then I'll say hello to people. But if I'm like out of the shops or something and I see someone I think I know, I'm like, I'm not fucking saying a word until they say
Fuck
hello
taking that
first.
chance,
Yeah, I'm not taking that chance again. And it's funny. It's like even something so small and minute like that, who really, I got over the embarrassment after I called like my brother, you know, and told him about it. But it was that sort of, that lingering effect of it. It's like, fuck, don't do that again.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
made you feel bad. That made you feel fucking very embarrassed. Like,
Yeah.
but I can see, you know, these little things. It's like, well, you use the example of like going up and talking to people if they've been like put on the gronk before or, you know, been like, you know, laughed at or rejected by whoever, then obviously that's going to have an impact on, fuck, well, don't do that again. Like,
Exactly.
but yeah, it's moving past that. And that's what really gets you, you know,
Progression.
you got to get out of your comfort zone to grow. 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And that's that's something I can get into later as well as far as neuroscience and all that. But the more that you be, how do I describe it? The more that you be you, the more concrete those habits and stuff form. So let's say that guy's had that moment where he's gone up to people, whatever, and each time that he thinks that thought comes up of like, oh, I should go over and talk to them, and then you have this rewiring of like, no, don't do that. There's a guy called Dr. Joe Dispenza, which if there's one person I recommend anyone who's listening to check out, it's him. And his whole theory is you train yourself to feel the way that you want to feel. You can only feel as good as you think, and you can only think as good as you feel. So most people are trapped in that cycle. They feel like shit because of whatever's happened in their past. Their thought process is negative because they had negative parents, and sometimes, because a lot of times I bring up trauma and people are like, oh, like my parents were perfect or whatever. And it's like, they can be good, they can love you and all that, but no parent is perfect, and you can't place that expectation on any parent. For you to
100%,
say it's just deluded, and for you to accept your parents are people and they would have done things wrong, and that's another thing I think that stops a lot of people getting into this type of stuff. It's a mix of ego, but it's also a mix of you have to accept that maybe the people around you weren't as perfect as what you thought. Doesn't mean that they're bad, doesn't mean your parents hated you or whatever, but it's still something that you need to accept.
That's actually interesting. I know this is like a weird sort of curveball to throw in, but it actually relates directly to that.
Yeah.
I was watching a Pink's documentary. You know Pink, like the singer? Yeah. And she actually really spoke about that really well. I suppose like her album was called Beautiful Trauma, so it was like the Beautiful Trauma Born to Well, whatever.
Yeah.
But she spoke a lot about that, about how when she grew up and realized her parents aren't fucking God, you know, and it's such a hard thing to come to grips with, and then realizing, fuck, I'm the same. Like, I'm not perfect either. And it's this cycle, and it's sort of about that cycle of like, well, dealing with it. And then you break that cycle for your kids. And she sort of went into that a bit. But yeah, just, I thought I'd throw that in there. That is pretty much exactly word for word what she said. Like, in terms of, when she talked about like her dad and her mum, and she was like, they weren't these perfect, you know, human beings that you grow up as a kid, especially as a kid, you think, oh, fucking mum and dad are hectic, like they're the best, you know.
They look like they're like gods.
Yeah, they are. It's like, oh, they'll never, like, you know, they've never done this bad, and that's why when you're rebelling and shit, it's like, well, fuck, I'm doing shit they never did. It's like, oh no, they probably fucking did that.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I know for a fact my parents didn't do half the shit I've done, but
you not reckon it's in the Graham genes?
It's their own. I don't know where I get. I think I get from my bad fucking experiences from my mum's side.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so fucking drugs and shit. But anyway, hopefully mum's not watching. No, she knows a bit.
And as you said, those that is another. I'd say along with realizing that you're not your thoughts, you're not every one of your thoughts. That's another big realization. Is like your parents aren't God, and everything that they said wasn't correct. Because it's funny, I was listening to something like that today. It's like, kids don't live in a credit card world. So you come home from school, you're just excited to see your parents and all that. Maybe you have a drawing or whatever. And let's say dad's behind on like financially or whatever, or mum and dad's marriage hasn't been good for a few years. All these external problems, which as a kid you can't even comprehend. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
we'll just go get more money then. And it's like, well, sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you don't live in that world of like, and children are very inherently narcissistic, not in the way of like, oh, they're a piece of shit, but like you as a survival mechanism. If your parents don't like you, if your parents kick you out as a kid, you're fucked. Like,
Yeah.
you can't go and get food. You can't go get a job and all that.
Yes.
So as a kid, you have to mold yourself, and depending on how, I'm not going to say how good, I don't want to grade parents, but the different techniques your parents use, you will warp yourself completely into what you think your parents will like. And it's cool for childhood, you get through childhood or whatever, but at a certain stage, and this is how midlife crises happen, it's like, it gets to a stage where it's stored down for so many years and you're not being your authentic self. You're not doing the stuff you're interested in. You're not talking about the stuff you want to. And it just gets to a stage where you just erupt. And
Yeah.
that's why it's important to address these things before you buy a Harley and leave your family.
Yeah. Yeah. Or fuck your secretary or
Oh,
some
Jesus.
shit. Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. Or have a fucking baby with a fucking 18-year-old when you're 55.
Jesus. Yeah, before you do one of those irreversible.
Yeah, damages to your life. And I guess damages to your family as well. But yeah, cool. Very interesting way of looking at it. So, like, in terms of your personal experience with this, sort of what was, me and Ricky talked about it a bit, that sort of moment where you realize, fuck, I need to do something, And what was that for you? If you want to get into it, it's up to you.
I want to, I'd like to talk about this because this is so kind of like, what's the word? Not embarrassing, but just like, that I hope that somebody else listens to it. It's like, fuck, it's not as bad as that. I remember I went out with a group of friends and this was like...
Can I just move that closer to you?
Yeah. Sorry. This was like peak of my kind of like trauma and all that starting to come up. I'd left school. I was very dedicated to football and all that, but I didn't have a lot of social connections. My home life wasn't the greatest and all that. I wasn't getting along with my parents. So it was just constant negative social interaction all the time. So I went out with a group of friends, and I'm aware now that I understand I wouldn't have been the best to be around back then because of all the trauma and all that. You can't just put it off to other people all the time of like, oh, like they're my friends, they should deal with it or whatever. It's cool to have a little blip, like, and that's when friends come and support you. But if you're just a constant negative influence, you're constantly being like a fucking Debbie Downer. You can't expect people to stay around with you and all that. And
that's
I remember there was just... You know how these subtle cues where you see that people don't respect you? They're going out, it's like, you're not really wanted. Like, you could be here or not be here. And
no one would really, Yeah.
And I went home and I remember I was just so mad and just so tired, so exhausted of living this life of like, and it wasn't even just, that's the cherry on top of the cake. The main thing I know now, which was making me unhappy, was the constant negative affirmation from myself, from which I'd received from my childhood. And it's like, I could never do anything right. I would never give myself any props. Everybody's needs came before mine and all that. And I came home and I remember I looked up on a YouTube video. I was like, how to get people to respect you. I didn't even want to be liked at that point. I just wanted to be respected. I just wanted to be treated like I was actually a human. And well, actually, I just wanted to feel like I was actually a human. I remember I looked at that, and then that's what just started this whole thing. And I'd say for a lot of the times I've been looking into this stuff, it's been motivated by pain. But as I've released it, I'd say I've made a fair few breakthroughs in maybe the past 6 months. As I've released it and I've started to work from passion instead of pain, and actually work off inspiration and work, because this is the authentic me. This is what I care about. My work rate has gone through the roof. So originally I'd say I was motivated by pain and just to try and escape my reality, because it was kind of like, well, fuck, like if I can't fix this and I just want to check out, so I'm going to try and do as much as I can to try and figure this out. Yeah,
no, that's cool. I guess I think, well, with most people, this sort of sense of wanting to grow and evolve as a person, I think you need to go through some shit to do it. I don't think you can be at a pretty good place in your life. I mean, you probably could, but I think when people get very comfortable, you know what I mean? Yeah. And if things are going pretty well, they can always go better. Yet people get comfortable and they think, oh, well, fuck, I got a pretty good job. It's not too bad. It's not what I really want to be doing, but I'm happy, I'm happy. Oh, yeah, I got a few friends, I'm fucking happy. Yeah. It's like, no, fucking go out and fucking get what you want. Get uncomfortable. That's sort of my biggest thing is like, there's been so many things that I've wanted to do And I've gone, oh, nah, maybe not, maybe not. But I've pushed myself to do it. It's like, fucking do it. Like this podcast, for instance. Fucking, I'm not even kidding you. I didn't know how to set up studio lights or a fucking camera before. Like, I had no idea. And I just fucking taught myself because I'm like, I want to do it. So I just did it. And I think that's a really important thing with anything. This, you know, is get uncomfortable. That would be my sort of, you know, advice to people. I think getting uncomfortable really pushes you to succeed more. And that's why so many people do find, you know, self-realizations and wanting to explore, you know, different parts of themselves and when they're at their lowest. Because they're already there. They're already there. They think, what the fuck can I lose, you know? But I think it's important for everyone to do it no matter where you are. Don't wait for something to fucking happen in your life to go, oh, I could fix this or I could do this better or whatever, you know? Sort of, I mean, it's sort of on topic, but...
Yeah, no, 100%. And what you say with, like, getting uncomfortable, you have to look down deeper into what that uncomfortable feeling is. What are you actually doing when you're being uncomfortable? Because physically, like, let's say you want to start going to the gym, you could make that theoretically very comfortable. Like, you can go once a day a week, you can slightly minute your diet or whatever, and over time progress, and it wouldn't be that physically different for you. So deep down, what is the thing that actually makes it uncomfortable? And it's these internal paradigms, these internal thought processes about you and the world. It's like, I'm not someone who goes to the gym. I'm not someone who's popular. I'm not someone who's charismatic because of whatever belief you've had in the past. And as I said before, it's no mean feat of like, oh, fuck it, I'll just chuck that belief out. It's like, no, your subconscious doesn't do that.
Yeah.
It wants to stay alive. You're legitimately fighting your internal hard drive to stay alive. And well, I guess, better time to get into it now. How you change the subconscious mind, there's two ways you change it. It's through repetition or intensity. And this could click with a lot of people. It's like, damn, you know what? I've had an abusive parent or an abusive, toxic partner or whatever. And that repetition each day of like subtle things that make me feel like a piece of shit. And now after I've got out of my childhood or my relationship, now I have that view of myself. Or on the other side, it's intensity. You have those clear moments, a parent dies or a breakup or whatever, or your parents divorce or whatever, these significant moments. Those are only two ways that you change. And as you said before, once people get to rock bottom, they're a lot more likely to change. It's because that's that intense moment. That's an opening for you to change the subconscious. And ideally, you don't want to wait until that rock bottom point to change. You can change it through repetition. And this is what Joe Dispenza talks about each day, getting up. And meditation can be used in two different ways. There's the mainstream meditation where it's sit there, try not to think about shit for a bit, which, don't get me wrong, is very productive. Like, it helps people. But the deep meditation that's actually going to get like long-standing results is one where you try to create a state from within. You try to feel the way that you want to feel. You train yourself to feel that way. Because if you're based off the feelings and the emotions of the past, and that's all you're reminiscing on, that's all you're going to get in the future. As I said, you can only feel as good as you think, and you can only think as good as you feel. If you're thinking and feeling in the past, you're just going to keep recreating your life. And as you said, that's what happens. A lot of people never change.
Yeah, they get stuck in that cycle, and then they pass on to their kids, and their kids pass on to their kids, and their kids pass it. Yeah, and it just goes on and on and on. Sorry, I was just checking something.
No, that's what
so I guess, well, we've covered it a little bit. Actually, I will just ask you this. Now, there will be a few people who watch this who go, fuck you talking about, which is fine. People are allowed to do that. And there has been a lot of talk about sort of the wellness industry, I guess. This fucking, retreats in California and shit like that. I mean, there was just a show about it, 9 Perfect Strangers, sort of a piss take of that. In a way where they were like microdosing shrooms and LSD and fucking all this shit. Which actually does have benefits if you really research it. To everyone who anyone who's against fucking all drugs, wake up to yourself. And be more fun is my fucking advice. Be more fun. Fuck, I'm glad I've done drugs. Like, honestly.
Yeah,
I'm thankful. Like, I'm obviously, some drugs are bad. There is no fucking denying that. Some drugs are bad. But I think this war on drugs is fucking ridiculous.
I think it's largely financial. This is getting into conspiracy theory shit and stuff, but I think it's
Yeah.
largely financial. It's not based off, especially look at a lot of the studies, especially with stuff like marijuana and all that. It's like if you base off the original studies.
Well, look at what was open during every lockdown we've had.
Yeah, exactly.
Look what was open. Liquorland. Liquorland was open while everyone's sitting at home, which I'm not against drinking. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against drinking whatsoever. I fucking drink all the time. But I mean, in terms of like health, well, what the fuck? Is that really essential for everyone's health, you know, to drink? But just in general anyway, alcohol is so easily accessible. And yet if you fucking do a bit of cocaine on the weekend, or you popped a molly when you were 16, or fucking, you know, any of that, or you even smoke weed, you know, from time to time, fuck you, fucking outcast. You're a fucking druggo.
Exactly.
You know, all these, you know, people who don't or haven't tried drugs or haven't, you know, experimented, they see it as so bad. I know this is a bit off topic from what we're talking about, but I don't know, I find it interesting.
No, and even the psychological aspect and the subconscious and all that, it's amazing how it has this ripple effect onto life in every way. Like a lot of the weed studies I could summarize it with not causation, but correlation. So it's like, 70% of people who smoke weed have anxiety. It's like, well, did the weed cause the anxiety, or did the anxiety cause the weed?
Yeah.
Are people trying to escape through that?
Through
and
that,
also,
yes, exactly.
you have a societal construct around people who smoke weed. It's typically the outcasts, it's the people, the drop kicks or whatever. And typically those people, it's like, however many percentage of people don't earn blah, blah, blah a year. It's like, yeah, but that's a societal construct. That's not cause of the weed.
Yeah.
That's cause of the societal construct that's been forced onto the weed.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how that can relate back to as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. And I mean, in terms of psychedelics and that, I mean, if you really look into it, the actual effect it's having on your brain, it's actually unlocking a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Which is locked down from, and that's why, like, I mean, look, each to their own, but people I know that I know for a fact have never done any drugs are so fucking boring in my opinion. Like, I find it very hard to be on like the same sort of level with a lot of people who, you know, have chosen strictly not to do any drugs. And that's not to say for everyone.
Yeah.
That's, you know, there's people I know who haven't done drugs who are fucking awesome to hang out with and get along with. But I feel like when you experience it a little bit more, especially in your teenage years, I think that's a really... I'm not, and you know, promoting it. I'm not promoting it whatsoever. But if there's a time to experiment, I think fucking 16, 17 is a fucking great time to experiment with shit like that. As long as you're doing it safely, everyone. Don't go start smoking meth. But yeah, I think it has a huge impact on what sort of person you become.
Yeah.
It has negative effects too. Don't get me wrong. It's not all positive.
Yeah, like everything. Yeah.
But I think you can see the world in a little bit different way.
Yeah.
When you have let loose a little bit more in life.
I'd say like just kind of, and this is the most generic fucking like misused advice ever. When I say be yourself, it's a whole other trail of releasing trauma and all that type of stuff. But do what you authentically want to do. If you're thought of,
unless it's like killing people or raping people, don't do that. Yeah.
Typically, I'd say that shit's motivated by trauma. Like if you're releasing it, I wouldn't say there's very many completely stable, healthy people who would go through this process of releasing the trauma and all that and be like, you know what, I'm gonna go shanking cunts. Like,
yeah.
It's I would say be authentic to you. If you feel like this would be a beneficial experience to you, not even just in the fun way, but even spiritually and all that, do it. I don't even give a fuck saying fuck the government, fuck the law. Don't let the law dictate your moral code, because the law has a lot of other intricacies into it about making money and all that shit. But yeah, don't let your parents' opinion, don't let anyone's opinion. There's this little thing of like, and I've heard so many people, not even just drugs, but like somebody wants to go do like, let's say acting or whatever, but the parents want them to be a dentist. It's like, I can't disappoint my parents. It's like, fuck that.
Yeah.
They're projecting this opinion onto you. I think you should do this. You're actively trying to control this human just because you brought them into this life. Like, doesn't mean you get to just, it's not like a fucking Build-A-Bear. You don't just get to create your best.
Exactly. And actually we talk about that quite a bit at, because I got a NIDA for acting. And we talk a bit about that actually. A few people in my class have even said like, yeah, it took them a long time. Like they're 26, 27 now, whatever. And it took them a long time to go, you know what? Fuck it. You know, because their parents never wanted them to do that. You know, they wanted them to have a steady 9-to-5 job, which is, trust me, it's a good idea. Fucking go out and make money. Yes, go out and make money. But if you can do it on the side, fucking do it on the side. Or get a part-time job and fucking do that, you know. Yeah. And just as long as, like, I'm not all for, you know, I mean, if you have the means to study full-time and not work and fucking live out your dream and go audition every day and not have to fucking make ends meet because mummy and daddy are paying for the bills, fucking good on you. Fucking go get it. Go fucking get it. But if you really want to do something that you want to do, whether it's acting, whether it's fucking anything, whatever, and there's people telling you not to do it, fucking try and do both. Yeah, people don't realize 24 hours in a day is a fucking long time.
There's so much.
You can do a lot in a day. Yeah, you can do a lot. Most people waste their time. Oh, I don't have time. Don't have time to go to the gym. But they'll spend an hour on fucking Facebook scrolling through stupid, funny videos. Yeah. Like, fuck, can't you have time? It's about time management.
Exactly.
You know?
That's something that as soon as I got into this, I started to learn. It's like most people's problems, like let's equate out like most people's problems. Let's say like it's mainly based around like a lot of people want a good body, good financial, good relationships and all that. Theoretically, if I locked you in a room right now and said like, you're not leaving until you get a solution for this, you could get that in 5 hours or so. Most people know how to get healthy and all that. This is not a logical problem. Improving yourself isn't a logical problem like, I don't know how. It's like, that's bullshit. You know how. It's an emotional problem.
Yes.
I was speaking about this, and he'll listen to this. I was speaking about this with my mate today, and we were trying to differentiate. He went through a period of time where his life was just amazing. Like, he was enjoying it. Like, he had such a sick social circle and all that. He was working towards his goals. And I said, it's Friday night, like try to set a scene or whatever. It's Friday night, you're sitting there and it's like, oh, should I go to the gym or should I like smoke bud or just chill out or whatever? It's like, think about the different states that you were in, how you felt internally in those two different moments. That's what differentiates. Like, if I just say one thing, the state that you were in will dictate your life. If you're in a state of like, oh, you know what, I'm a piece of shit, or these people don't like me or whatever, you're not going to be able to just magically turn it on and be like, oh, let's go to the gym. Like, I love myself now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're consistent how you view yourself, and the only way you change it is, as I said before, through repetition or intensity, putting that conscious effort into, at the beginning of the day and end of the day, set your state. You will not change. Yeah. Unless you have a very big moment, like I said before, like you hit rock bottom, which, like, who wants to wait to hit rock bottom before you change? You will not change.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And it is, you know, it's such a process. And that's what I really...
It's a whole bitch.
Yeah, that's what I want to get at, you know, because it's easy to talk about it in hindsight, for sure. But to actually, you know, start and get to a place where you're pretty happy, it's a fucking huge process, especially after something pretty traumatic, you know, whether it's a death of a loved one or a fucking breakup or whatever it may be, or you lose your dream job or you fucking whatever. It is an entire process and it takes a long time to get through it. But I guess the point of this podcast is start. Just begin. Because it doesn't take long to start seeing, you know, benefits come.
And then it starts to compound. And that's one thing that I wanted to, because I thought, like, you know, I could say a lot of shit here and like forget the main points. I was like, what's one point that I want to leave here? And it's just the thing of hope. I remember there were so many moments where I was just sitting there and I was like, at my worst, and it's like, I don't know whether this is actually going to get better. This is all I've experienced all through my life. Like, I don't know for a fact whether this could actually get better. And that's the message that I want to put out there, kind of like, and that's why I like to go into the neuroscience type of thing, because you have like the spiritual crowd and you have the pure logical, like, no, fuck this. If it's not straight, I'm not interested in it. That's why I want to get into the neuroscience side of things, so I can just give everyone a little sense of hope. It's like, here, like, we found it. Like, you can change. This is the reason why all this shit's been happening. Because that's a lot of things, like, well, to speak about suicide, for example, no one would commit suicide unless they felt like it was done. It's like nobody commits suicide. It's like, oh, this is a depressive phase, I'll get over it, and then they do it. It's like that sense of hopelessness.
Exactly, yeah. They can't see any way out.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
They've searched for answers and they've gone, no, nothing will work. I'm obviously very big on mental health. You know, that's one big thing I really wanted to try and address on this podcast when I started it. as well as COVID and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, mental health is obviously such a big thing, and it's such a there's such a huge stigma surrounding it. And that was actually a really smooth segue, by the way.
Yeah.
Well done to us.
Excellent.
You know that. You know, I see so many things, man, online and that, and people are so fucking stupid. But people will write things like, you know, they've killed themselves. Now they've just passed that pain on to their family. What's fucking selfish cunts and blah, 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 blah. It's like, you're a fucking absolute idiot, mate. Like,
just lack of empathy.
It is. And people, I always say this, and you don't have to go through it to understand it, but understand that you don't know for a fact. You know, you can understand something without knowing fully about it. You know, you can have that. Exactly. It's empathy.
Yeah.
And it's like that, oh, well, fuck, you know, it's just that knowledge of, well, they obviously felt like there was fucking no way out, you know? And people are allowed to feel that way, you know? Like, it's not like and especially if they have, you know, the last thing their family want to hear is someone else who doesn't know them calling them a selfish cunt.
Yeah.
And so I guess, my whole point to that was, if you are blessed enough to have never gone through any sort of mental health challenge or whatever, just remember that other people do, you know, and you don't have to, just be empathetic, be fucking sympathetic, you know, just be a nice fucking human. Because some people don't go through it, you know, some people don't go through anything, and, you know, they'll get sad and stuff, they'll feel emotions, but they don't go through anxiety or depression or whatever. But I think it's important to realize that people do, you know, and it's fucking real, man. It's very real for people. And yeah. Anyway.
To me, that's what true empathy is. Like, empathy is the ability to put yourself in shoes that you haven't walked.
Yeah.
Like, I'd say it's kind of subtly empathetic if you, like, it's like, oh, I went through that, so I understand what he's feeling. But true empathy is like, I have no idea how he could be feeling, but I'm reading from what he's putting out and all that that's how he feels. I think that's true empathy.
Yeah.
If you can only relate to people on stuff that you've experienced, then that's still kind of narcissistic. It's still based on you.
Yeah.
It's still based around you.
Yeah. And, that's true. Like, I think that's important for the world as a whole, I guess, is to really delve into, or just open yourself up to the way that other people, may be, or things they've gone through, because fuck, like, everyone goes through different shit, completely different shit that you will never go through in life. But the important thing is to remember that you could go through it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these people have gone through it, and it's just sort of opening yourself up to go, fuck, lucky me, you know, like, I haven't gone through that, but fuck, I feel for you, you know? And I mean, a lot of people are so consumed with their own bullshit that they don't really take the time to...
Exactly, and that's what I was about to bring up. Even for me, for example, like, I know looking back, and I'm pretty sure everybody has, like, I've done some unspeakable shit to people. Like, I've done bad stuff where I look back and it's like, wow, like, that was either a moment they came to me for help, or it's like social situations and all that. Like, one of the peak ones I think everybody's had is, like, you ever felt like insecure or whatever around people, and then somebody else who's down bad a little bit, like worse than you, and you kind of use that as like a step stool or whatever. And that's like, I've had that done to me, and I've done that to people before, and the root cause in that is insecurity. It's trauma. It's, I'm not good enough because of XYZ reason, so I need to push myself up onto there. And along with releasing this type of stuff, could you imagine if there was like how there was a lockdown or whatever, there was a forced thing where everyone was like, fuck money, fuck like building up all this shit. We just need, as a society, to have a bit where we look internally and all that. Like, it would be completely different.
Yeah.
But along with that, and this comes with conspiracy theory and all that shit, like, where would consumerism go? If I don't feel like shit unless I have the new Nikes, do I buy them? And that's where this stuff is societally.
Well, that's also what I wanted to touch on too, is that we have entered this phase now, I guess, this wellness phase. And I think it is a valid point. I mean, obviously, and this is the same with sort of anything. It's I guess, separating the ones who actually give a shit and the ones who just want your money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, and that's with sort of anything, you know, clothing lines, for instance. People will fucking make a clothing label, but it's really just a t-shirt with a fucking logo on it. And they're not really doing any clothing. And it's like the real fashion labels out there who are busting their ass, like designing shit and whatnot. But it's the same with like the wellness industry is like, they'll have all these like fucking, you know, retreats and shit that people can do and whatever, or people write books who don't really know what they're talking about. They'll just regurgitate shit they've heard before, and they won't come at it from an authentic place. And I guess it's would you think even the wellness industry is like, I guess, turned into consumerism now?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's the worst kind of consumerism. It's and you see some people on YouTube.
It's preying on people who feel like shit. Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm gonna target these people who like they're just on their last straw. It's like they're reaching out. It's funny. I was speaking to a mate about this the other day when I said like I made my decision. This is what I want to do as a job and all that. And he was like, oh, like, are you going to, like, quit or whatever and go full force into it? And I was like, no, I want to get money from an external place right now so that anything I do with this business is purely internal. It's purely authentic. I think that there is nothing worse than, like, if you were to run a self-help or wellness or whatever and have it be based on bullshit, you're just collecting people's money. To me, that's some demonic shit. Yeah. And I think that that's what a lot of the industry has turned into. But I don't even think it's just the industry. I think it's the ripples of society in general. You have food industries and all that putting bullshit in there because it's cheaper and because you get addicted to it and all that. It's the whole thing of I think that it's honestly that big to where it's the root cause of most bad shit now in our society. I don't think that those people running the big corporations and all that type of stuff do that foul shit if they're content with themselves. It's just kind of this megalomaniac thing of like the next thing. It's destination happiness. And you can even equate that to a smaller scale with just regular Joes. It's like, oh, once I get that car, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Once I get that promotion, I'll be happy. And then you get people who get so successful that they start doing negative shit because they just need it's something else on that treadmill.
Yeah.
Until they address the internal shit, they're never going to be happy.
Well, that's it. If you're always searching for something else, you know, and always looking towards the future, you can never truly be happy inside because you're always thinking, oh, well, fuck. When I get my holiday, that's when I'll be happy. Yeah. Fuck, we're closing over Christmas, I'll be happy then. It's like, fuck, if you hate your job, mate, that much that you're fucking holding out for Christmas break, fucking leave and find something else. I guess not everyone's in that same sort of position. You know, not everyone's that blessed and they do have to do shitty things for fucking shitty money and just to make ends meet. I 100% agree, like 100% feel for people in that position because there's a fucking lot of people in that position that aren't in a position to change things immediately.
Yeah, I like that bit how you added immediately at the end because I think that everybody can change to a degree. Like
100%.
If we can put a man on the moon, Jenny can get out of her Woolworths job.
Yeah.
Like, fucking hell.
Did we put a man on the moon though? Oh, who knows? Okay.
That's a valid point.
Watch episode 1 if you want to find out.
Cheeky plug.
But yeah, honestly, but the moon landing, seriously, come on, cunts. It's Cold War. Shady shit happened, okay? Actually, I've looked at a really good fucking thing about Stanley Kubrick. You should watch a documentary on that.
Oh, really? What's it about? Like?
It's like, so he did, Stanley Kubrick did The Shining, directed The Shining. And they reckon he directed, well, the theory is he directed the moon landing in like a Hollywood studio. And in his later works after 1969, you can sort of see like little bits and pieces here and there of like him trying to hint at it, I guess. But I don't know if it was just to cause like, you know, hysteria.
To be fair, I'd take that clout as well.
Yeah, but it's like, but because obviously he'd never be able to talk about it ever.
Yeah.
Obviously, he would have signed a million NDAs, and fucking probably had the CIA with a gun to his head if he fucking says anything. Yeah, and NASA and whoever else. But it's just interesting to look at. I don't know if I fully believe it, but you know, conspiracies are fun, guys.
Actually,
they have a lot. Yeah, people need to get off my back about, you know, you're a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, fucking, you're a boring person if you don't look at conspiracy theories. Like, fucking, at least be interested in them to look at them. I find them cool.
It's cool to see. You don't have to believe every single one of them.
Yeah, I see a lot that I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up. Like, shut up. That's could not possibly happen. Like, but in saying that, it could. So who knows? But I'll still watch them and be interested. But yeah, and also a little to everyone who called me conspiracy theorist last year. Sorry, I've been throwing these little digs in here because everyone who called me conspiracy theorist last year who said, you know, what, you think there'd be vaccine passports? Yeah, right. Okay, cunt. You're fucking off your head. Take the tinfoil hat off. Fucking, I'm not kidding you. I got this, right? I got this from people. These are the same people who are now going, fucking, who cares? Just got to show it to get in. Who cares? Fucking, it's like, you were calling me a conspiracy theorist last year for suggesting this was going to come, saying, well, that's fucking so out. You know, you're fucked in the head if you think that's going to actually happen. And now they're supporting vaccine passports. It's like, what? But anyway, that's a bit off topic. But yeah, to those people, fuck you. I was right.
Waiting a while to say
I was
that,
right. Yeah. I did write a status not long ago about it. But yeah, fucking. But yeah, sorry. Back on task.
No, that's weird.
Mental health. Yes. So we're talking about people changing their, you know, yes, people do have that ability. Everyone has the ability to change, right? Their circumstance, change how they perceive the world, change fucking their inner workings that make them a human. But you know, it is sort of, some people are in that position where they can't right now. And that's fine. That is totally fine. Even if it's reading a bit of online each night, you know, when you get home or whatever, you can't, you know, I can't leave that job now, but at least I know the steps I have to take when I can leave that job, when I build up enough money to get wherever I need to go, so I have a bit more freedom to look around and whatnot. Yeah, that's why I'm really, I guess, more on the right of politics, especially for social issues, and economic as well. I'm on the right of politics. But I'm also like a libertarian, so I believe the government should get fucked. But I guess that all comes into it is that if you want something, you can do it. Like, do not wait for fucking your prime minister or your president to fucking do this and that for you, or, you know, that's socialism. Fucking go live in a socialist country or a communist country if that's what you want. Everyone has the ability to go out there and do something that they want to do, right? All it takes is determination, right? And obviously, there's things that get in the way. 100%. I'll fucking sympathize with those people. I've been in those situations myself where I can't go and do this, I can't go and do that, you know, but I've made it work. Like, I had a car accident in fucking 2016, really bad one. Was living in Wollongong at the time. I was like, fuck, I'm unhappy here. It was kind of that sort of, that moment of like, fuck, I don't want to go back.
Those rock bottom, the intense moment.
And I was like, fuck, I don't want to go back. So I made the changes. I moved to Western Sydney, dropped out of theatre, kept my journalism degree because I was doing a double degree at Wollongong. Went to Western Sydney, got to move back home, was hanging out with my fucking hometown friends again. Like, I love the Hawkesbury. Everyone knows I love the Hawkesbury, right? But yeah, and it was just moments like that, and I was so much happier and so much more comfortable. Not even comfortable in like a, you know, oh, I'm comfortable because I'm, you know, I'm getting coddled. Not that sort of way. It just felt more right.
It felt more aligned.
It
felt more authentic.
With me. And to go to Western Sydney Uni and be surrounded by sort of more like-minded people and not be filled with these fucking lefty moron vibe of fucking you know, of fucking Wollongong Uni, which is infiltrated with fucking crazy lefties.
I agree to a large extent, especially with the way that kind of left culture is like, especially
it's you do it for me.
Exactly.
Do it for me.
It takes away.
It's like, no, do it for yourself, cunt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it takes away people's control. And when you take away people's control, you take away their responsibility, which in theory and at first it's like, oh, sick. This isn't my fault. You get to relax. You get to like lay off it a little bit. But then when you take away someone's responsibility, you take away their ability to change. It's like, and then after a while, and you see that with a lot of people, they just get stuck in this cage. It's like it's everybody else's fault, and they just don't progress at all.
Yeah,
and it's because they've gone through that thing of like, fault isn't the right word, because I believe a lot of trauma and all that, it's not anyone's fault, but it's my responsibility to change it.
Exactly, and that's what it comes down to, right? If you keep looking to place blame on someone else or a situation, you will never move past that.
Exactly,
you just can't. It's literally impossible. If you hold that anger and resentment towards that towards whatever happened, and align that as the cause of your current situation, which it may be an impact of it, yes, but if you keep placing the blame on that, you'll just keep there. You'll just be stuck there.
Yeah,
and you'll go, oh, well, fuck, it's this fault. I'm the victim, you know, blah, 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 victim.
Yeah.
And it's this victim mentality. And, mate, I've been watching The Circus at the moment, right, which is a documentary about, it starts in 2016. So the first season was all about the 2016 election.
Oh, yeah.
And fuck, mate, I tell you what, like, each to their own for political views. I'm one for that, right? Like, people know if, you know, whatever. I try and make it clear that people can think what they want. Fair enough. But I can also think what I want. And fucking hell, mate. Tell you what, all these, this Trump hatred that these fucking people had for Trump. Oh my God. Their view of the world is so warped. So fucking warped. And it's so like, you know, even just like simple things, not even getting into the whole fucking grab 'em by the pussy and all this sort of shit.
Yeah.
But, you know, especially Bernie Sanders voters, he's a fucking socialist, right? He's fucking all for socialism. Socialist Democrat, but he's a socialist. And they're all like, tax the rich, fucking billionaires should be taxed at 85%, all this shit. It's like, why? What? So these people who have made all this money for themselves and have gotten themselves to this fucking height of, and, you know, fair enough, there's some, you know, billionaires who I don't fucking like.
Yeah.
Of course. Bill Gates. But these people have worked their ass off to get where they are.
They've earned it.
And yeah, the system's flawed. I get the system's flawed. But that still doesn't mean these billionaires should be taxed at a fucking such a high rate that it can fund the whole fucking country. So then they can all sit on their ass and collect welfare checks. You know, like, I don't think that's, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it sort of goes in with this whole, you know, trauma and building your own life and self-development, is because if people keep seeing their situation as you know, as the victim, you know, they're never going to get out of that. Yeah.
It roots back to those paradigms and those beliefs and all that, as you said. Like, what's people's, like, one of the best exercises you can do is just write down, like, for example, I think, like, with relationships, with money, with friendships, anything, you write down what you think, and you don't put a conscious thing out like you're trying to write a speech or whatever. You just let it go. Some of it may not even make sense. You just write completely. And this roots back to, what are people's subconscious thoughts about successful rich people? It's like, oh, rich people are a piece of shit. They scammed their like money and all that type of stuff. What did your parents say about rich people? Because typically you reiterate your parents' thoughts. So how, and it's weird because a lot of people that say that shit, they want to be successful as well. And it's like, how are you going to go and be successful if you think that they're all piece of shit? Does that mean that you want to become a piece of shit? You have to release that trauma, that paradigm or whatever. You have to release that for you to be able to get to that stage. And I think that references back to what you said about, like, oh, just fuck the rich and all that. You see it with celebrities. People have fuck all empathy for celebrities. It's like, oh, he's got to, like, someone just tried to commit or whatever. And it's like, oh, he's got like $100 million. He'll be right. Like,
I know. And you see it a lot with footy players as well. I've really noticed this. And look, don't get me wrong. There's two sides to this, because for sure, people in, you know, more privileged positions, such as, you know, sports athlete or movie star or whatever the fuck, when they do something wrong, like get caught drunk and disorderly or in a fight in public or whatever the fuck, mental health is always the go-to. Always the go-to. Right? Yeah. Always the go-to reason. I'm going to check myself into rehab. I'm going to do this and that. But on the other end of that what pisses me off with that is that it actually takes away the validity of people who really do need that help. Yeah. And the people who really do, then they cop the same criticism as the people who do use it as an excuse, sort of thing. Yeah. And I see so many. Facebook's the worst, like 100%. Like, I try and stay off it a fair bit, but I'm on it a lot. I'm not going to lie. I'm on it a lot. Yeah. And but it's just some of the comments. I don't engage as much as I used to, I must say. I used to engage with a lot of random people, like on the comment section and shit. I did the other day just because I thought, fuck it, I'm sick of this shit. So I posted something and it went pretty good. It was about like the vaccine fucking sort of, well, we just hit 90% fully vaxxed. And I'm like, oh, well, fucking no wonder you mandated it and forced it. Like, good on you. Fucking well done, everyone. Yeah, you government, fucking celebrate fucking, you know, fucking medical fucking tyranny. Yeah.
That's a whole nother subject.
Yeah, whole nother subject. We won't get into that. because I don't want YouTube to ban me
Yeah, I was
again.
about to say before, the YouTube algorithm is going to have a fucking field day with this one.
Oh, yeah, fuck. Well, yeah, it's not as bad as some of them. I tried uploading episode 5. If you go on YouTube and you can't see episode 5, because it got banned before it even premiered.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, fuck. Oh, well, whatever. But what was I talking about? What was I
Talking
just
about
saying?
celebrities and lack of empathy.
Oh, yeah.
bro.
So then, yeah, in the comment section and whatnot, you'll see people, like, especially footy players, I really feel it hits pretty hard for them because it's, you know, a male sport, obviously. Well, I mean, it's a female sport too, but male-dominated sport. And so many comments are like, oh, fucking, he's on 600,000 a year. What's he got to complain about? Or he plays footy for a living. What's he got to complain about? It's like, that is so not the reality.
So irrelevant.
You know, it's so irrelevant.
It's like if
so
they,
irrelevant.
It's like they're not fucking faking it. Like if they do this self-destructive shit, they're doing it for a reason. This is the whole thing of like when people say money equals happiness. I feel like money equals freedom, yes, and especially the ignorance and confidence people go into when saying that statement. It's like, oh, money equals happiness. Like anyone who says anything else is dumb. Like, and the celebrities will come out and say it's like, no, this doesn't equal everything. But then people will be like, oh, what do they got to like? How can they say anything about it? They've got the money. It's like exactly, they've got the money. They can tell you from experience.
Exactly, yeah. And they've also got cameras following them around 24/7. Who the fuck wants that?
Yeah, exactly.
And catching every moment and not being able to go out. Like, I think what money does is it gives you
Options.
money without fame definitely gives you freedom. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Money with fame does not.
Yeah.
It takes freedom. But in saying that, having a lot of money also takes a bit of freedom from you as well, in terms of like a lot of the people around you, surrounding you, are not fucking good people.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like when you win the lotto. Like if I won the lotto, I would literally leave. Say if I won 50 million, right? Let's make it a bit more. Let's say if I won 80
Just
million.
keep bumping it up. Fuck
Yeah,
it.
80 million. I'd probably leave 10 million to my parents, 10 million to my brother, probably a little bit to my cousin, who I'm close with, for her and her kids, and then I would get on a plane and no one would ever see me again. I would move to a fucking tax-free fucking place, live in the islands and just fucking live it up for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And fuck everyone else. I probably wouldn't do that for the rest of my life, but mate, as soon as you if you win fucking lot of money,
You see a lot of the lotto like winners and all that. There's even been studies about that. They've lost it all 2 years later. They're depressed 2 years later because they've lived this high life or whatever. Unless you address these core things running you, no matter what money you get. There's even a scientific term for it. It's called the hedonic treadmill. And your brain, like your body and all that, gets adjusted to your environment. No matter where you are. Like, have you ever, when you were younger or whatever, I used to love clothes and that shit when I was younger. I was like, fuck, if I just got that shirt or like soccer jersey or whatever, like that'd be sick. And then you get it, and then 6 months later, it's like, oh, I'm going to like play soccer or whatever. Like, I'll just wear something old. Oh, I'll just get that. And it's like, this thing used to be so special. And as you get older, that doesn't change. It just gets bigger. And it's like, oh, once I get that car, once I get that house or whatever.
Yeah.
But the time capital that you're losing is so much bigger. You're now dedicating 20 years to I'll be happy once you pay off that house, instead of like 2 weeks of saving up to get a shirt. And that bit of your life, you don't get back. Like
Exactly.
That's 20 years of you being a slave to your trauma. And that's why this shit is so important. So you can become...
and then once you get there anyway,
oh, it's the worst feeling.
It's never as good as you thought it was going to be anyway.
Yeah.
Because you've put so much fucking
emphasis on it.
Yeah, exactly, on your life. And it's like, you know, and I've been, you know, I'm fucking done this myself plenty of times. I've gone, oh, well, fucking Splendor's coming up in July. So once I go to Splendor, it'll be good. And then it's like 5 days that fucking, it's a great 5 days. Well, when you're on the way home, it's probably
done,
from the drugs come down too that you're on. But I mean, it's done. You're like, well, fuck. Now I'm back to work and fucking what's the next thing?
It's back
I do agree that it is good to have something to look forward to. I
yeah.
definitely agree. It keeps you going and it keeps you motivated. And it's good to have things to look forward to. But if you base your whole, you know, happiness on the future, and whether it's in 6 months or whether it's in a year or whether it's in fucking 5 years or 10 years or even in 2 weeks, you know, if you're constantly doing that, you'll never be happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're just going to waste this whole life. And I probably used the wrong word. I probably shouldn't have used happiness, because happiness is quite often related to the emotion of feeling happiness. I'm talking about true contentment and joy. And
Yeah,
as you
and
said,
like completeness.
yeah. Whether you feel like how do you feel about yourself? Do you feel like you have meaning, like you're doing something fulfilling? Oh, this is another very important thing. Tony Robbins has the 6 human needs. I may butcher them, but I'm pretty sure it's growth and contribution. Those are the first 2. So you need to feel like you're growing as a person, you're leveling up as a person, but you also have a need for contribution. And a lot of these needs are paradoxes, which is why I want to get something tattooed on me related to balance. And I think that that's honestly the key to life. Balance, not just in like social sides of things, but success and everything. I feel like extremes at both angles are typically motivated by trauma. And the second set of needs is, trying to think back to them now. Oh, certainty and uncertainty. It's like, how can we have both? It's like, day to day, you need certainty that you will have people around you, you will receive that love, you will receive, like, if you had no certainty that you would receive a positive emotion for the rest of your life, you would be anxious as fuck right now.
Yeah.
So you need that certainty, and that's quite often what those goals give you. Those destination happiness. It's like, oh, I'll be certain I'm happy once I get that house. I'll be certain I'm happy once I got that car, whatever. And that's why people need to look deep down into this. It's like, how are you meeting your needs? This is a quick little sidewalk, but I was speaking to a mate today, and he's trying to quit smoking weed. And he was like, oh, like, I just got to power through it. I just got to stop. And he's kind of checking himself in a negative way. And it's like, no, you're getting something from that. You don't do something without you getting a positive from it. So what needs are you fulfilling from that?
Yeah.
Like, does that turn off that voice in your head? Are you getting certainty that you can, like, just sit back and enjoy yourself? Are you getting comfort from it? You can't replace a habit without replacing the need. So let's say you want to stop going out and drinking every weekend or whatever. What do you get from that? You get, like, for example, let's say social connection. You get maybe validation from the opposite sex or whatever, because everyone's just grinding on each other in nightclubs. You get to escape your thoughts or whatever. You can't just replace that with reading. Because it's like, that's what you see a lot of people do. It's like, nah, I'm going to stay and work on my business or whatever. It's like, no, you need to replace that whole need. You're not going to get rid of that habit until you replace the need.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely, yeah. I think it's a really important, aspect of life is, and, that's sort of where the whole process comes down to, isn't it? Is this, everyone, I mean, generally speaking, everyone wants to feel content and happiness and wants to feel in control, and I guess the closest you can get to that is going through this shit, is working hard on it to sort of come out the other side and go, yeah, okay, look, I'm more in control than I was ever before. And, like, of course, life will still throw fucking curveballs your way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's life. But it's about how you react and how you deal with them, and it wouldn't, once you do the work behind it, and, obviously it's still a process for everyone, still a process for me, for sure. But once you reach that, sort of, or you keep growing, you keep improving, these things that would usually, or used to fucking blow you out of the water and fucking really affect you, no longer have that sort of same impact. And, and I guess living in the now is also very, very important. Very important.
That's how you release a lot of this stuff, by staying in the moment and actually respecting these feelings. That's something as well that it was very hard to learn. Like, no matter what emotion comes up, because a lot of people is like, oh, that's stupid, like, I just push it away or whatever. You don't have to respect the thought behind the feeling. Like, let's say, for example, the thought is like somebody leaves you on red or whatever, and the thought is, I'm a useless piece of shit, like, nobody likes me or whatever. And that sounds very extravagant or whatever. It's like, oh, I wouldn't think that. But if you dig down deep into your subconscious, the shit that thing will say, you wouldn't say to your worst enemy. Those deep core beliefs. Because, again, as a kid, you take everything so condemning. So, yeah, they leave you on red or whatever. The thought basis is like, I'm a piece of shit, nobody likes me or whatever. And then you feel this emotion of shame and helplessness and all that. You have to respect that emotion because it's there for a reason. But you don't have to respect the thought. It's like, no, wait, there is a multitude of other reasons why they could have left me on red. A, they could just be a dick. B, like, they could have, like, have you ever read a message and then your phone died or whatever? It's like, I know that typically that's not it, but which thought serves you? which, like, are you going to spend the next however long until you see the person, like, mad or whatever, or are you going to be like, you know what, if they don't appreciate me, I'm sure there's people who do. It's like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm sure as hell someone's.
Yeah, that's a super important thing. I think relationships are very, whether it's with a partner or with a friend or with parents or family or whoever the fuck, people are very complex, human beings, and I think the more you realize that, the easier it sort of gets to, I guess, sort of, delve into, why people are the way they are. And it kind of makes it a bit more easy to let go of people and to move on. Because I've definitely gone through that myself, 100%. In terms of, thinking like, fuck, well, if they don't reply to me or if they don't want to hang out with me, then fucking no one's going to want to hang out with me, And it's like, well, no, actually, fucking all these other people, they love you, cunt. Like, so if that person, and also a lot of the time people get caught up on, it's all about wanting what you can't have. So when, someone who you really want to talk to is not giving you that sort of love back and that, it's very easy to get wrapped up in that sort of like, well, fuck, like, I don't want to talk to anyone then, fucking, it's like, well, why don't you just put your attention and your energy into people who actually do care and do show they care. And then the people that don't, honestly, my biggest advice to people would be, and I need to take this advice on myself sometimes, but is fucking let them go, Just let them go. Like, it's not worth it. It's not, like, there is so many people in the world, and if you're working hard to prove yourself to someone, it's already not worth it. If you have to prove yourself to someone, it's not worth it straight away. Like, you should not have to prove yourself to anyone for validation.
And not even just in that, like, that situation of that friendship. It's kind of like, what's your general view of yourself? What's your general paradigm there? Someone who has high standards for themselves, someone who appreciates, loves themselves, and is like, you know what, I'm a positive, vibrant person. They're not going to waste time interacting with people who don't appreciate them. And it's just going to be like, okay, next. It's not this big thing of like, fuck them or whatever. It's like, maybe we just don't click. And it's not, that's one thing, like, people take it on a situation by situation basis when you need deep down to attack that core belief. It's like this specific situation, in general scheme of things, it's like 2 years, 20 years from now, whatever, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
But if that core paradigm is still there, if that belief is there, you're just going to keep repeating it.
Exactly. There's a really good book I've read recently. It's called Welcome Home. It's by Najwa Zebian. And she's such a great author, such a great writer. And it's basically about building a home within yourself, right? And dealing with your core sort of issues that are deep down. So you don't fall into that repetition of hurt all the time. And sort of building that home within yourself. So it takes away that, she calls it inner homelessness, which I find really interesting. Like, it's if someone like leaves you or you have a falling out with someone or whatever, you like feel like you lose part of yourself and you don't know who the fuck you are anymore. And it's about like, well, if you build up you and your boundaries and everything, to build your home, and your home is you, you can let people in. Like, 100% you can let people into your home, but they don't own your home. They haven't built your home. They haven't fucking decorated your home. Like, you own that.
They're a guest.
And if they leave, they're a guest. And if they leave, you've still got your home. Yeah, exactly. Like, you're still in your home,
Yeah.
And it's like, well, fuck. And I found that really interesting, and it's really helped me a lot with certain situations. So yeah, shout out to her. I'm going to actually edit this and send it to her because she'll read it.
Oh, really?
So yeah, she's got like 1.2 million followers on Instagram, and man, she's like one of the most active, responsive people. Because I've messaged her before about like different things she's written and stuff, and she sort of explained it to me. So yeah, really cool.
Yeah, that definitely correlates, because the people who go through this shit, the people who are happy internally, like, to bring it back to drugs real quick, for anyone who ever's done like Molly or whatever, like Caps, your dopamine and all that is so through the roof. You just want to love like everyone. And that's kind of like, it's symbolic of this type of stuff. Once you've done all this stuff, you don't go out and like try to pick fights. You're not like trying to base yourself off insecurity and all that. You're just abundant, and it would make sense that she would be responsive. She just wants to help people.
Yeah.
She's dealt with her shit.
Yeah. No, very cool. And I like that, because like 1.2 million, you're going to get a lot of fucking DMs and shit.
Bro, yeah.
And so to to respond to me. Yeah, I found it really cool. And it really, thing I forgot to mention earlier when we were talking about drugs, a really good piece of advice I've seen and I've sort of taken on board is if you're going to do drugs to make a good time great, never to make a bad time good.
Yeah, because that's how you get addicted.
Right? And so never use it to mask anything. But if you want to excel a situation into something better, like a music festival, you'll go to a music festival, you're going to be happy, but you're going to fucking love it if you take a bit of fucking with you, you know?
And this is a very controversial thing because there's a lot of stigma and all that around addiction. But from what I've seen and what I've looked into, addiction is purely caused from trauma. It's running from something within. Like, I have somebody in my life that is just... it's a calamity. Like, it's constant drinking, constant smoking and all that. And if he were to stop, all of that would just, like, all of that trauma would just come and collide at once. And that's the basis of it. And you see so many people, addicts get shamed. Like, what do addicts get in our society? They get put in jail. It's like, you're not good enough to be a part of society, which I agree to a certain extent with murderers and all that, that you take someone out of society. It's like, okay, you're not someone who's applicable to be in society, but not to someone who's helpless, like, kind of drug addict, and they're just trying to run from their emotions, or they've been through foster care, they've been through all this type of shit, and then we as a society just shame them more. It's like, you're just going to further propel their negative opinions of themselves. This is where we need to have empathy and need to feel through these things. No conscious person who's healthy and happy with themselves goes and ruins their life with drugs.
100%. And to touch on addiction, like, I'm really big on this, is for 100% we need prison reform for drug addiction. Like, I know firsthand through certain family members who have been addicted to drugs and have gone to jail for it and been in prison. It does not help. It doesn't help at all.
It'll propel in the opposite direction.
It's nothing about rehabilitation, man. The drug business in jail is just as bad as the drug business out here.
Right,
and all it does is, then they get out and they don't know how to live life. What we need, I would rather my tax dollars, instead of housing them in a cell with 3 meals a day, I'd rather my tax dollars be spent to them going to rehab fucking 3 to 6 months and never offending again.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a really good, SBS Viceland. Anyway, it's like they do like different sort of, bits on different issues and whatnot. They did a really good one with this girl who was just normal. She came from a good family, nothing really, that wrong with her life, but she just started going down a bad path and whatever it was, like on the external front, nothing really bad. But she, she started smoking weed and then started doing a bit of coke and that, and then she ended up trying heroin, and she became a full-blown heroin addict. And she went to prison, and she was so lucky to she got chosen one of 2 people to go into this new rehabilitation program. She got clean. Now she's actually an advocate for the program. She, helps other people and totally turned her life around. And it's like, fuck, man, like, this should be a fucking wake-up call to the government. Like, exactly. This is what we need. This is what we fucking need. Like, we don't need people locked up fucking 10 years for drug charges.
Exactly.
Like, it does not help.
When you look at the root basis of why they're doing the drugs, it's not because they hate people. It's not because they're a menace to society.
Exactly.
It's because they're trying to escape their feelings. And as you said, I like how you said external as well. That chick had a perceived externally perfect world. Like, I don't know the backstory of it, but you know how people say, like, white picket fence, 2 parents, perfect, all that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just an external thing. You don't know how that household is day to day and all that. And that's something I'd encourage, because there would be a few people listening to this and be like, oh no, like, my thing was perfect and all that. Like, I don't know, I never had any trauma and all that. I guarantee you have.
Yeah.
I can guarantee
everybody has. Everybody has, 100%. And that's what separates, I think, society in a way, is people who deal with it and people who don't.
Exactly.
And not to say people who don't will end up fucking banished from society or be on the, the edges of society as a drug addict or as a fucking criminal or whatever the fuck. Some people, but in terms of full, what we'll, I sort of bring it back to is that full content and happiness and living your true authentic self. People who don't try will never get there.
Yeah,
they'll just never get there.
A lot of the time, they could be like successful as fuck. There's so many people who like and that's something that I'd like to advocate with it. It's like, it's not like, oh, release trauma and then you get successful. It's like, no, I don't even want that stigma around it. Like, I was trying to think of my like business kind of marketing thing the other day. And it's like, I don't want those like yacht parties and shit from Instagram thing. I was like, oh, if you do this, you can live this. No, this has to be for you. There's so many traumatic people who are successful as fucking, like, how many celebrities do you see go off the rails? This needs to be something for you, so that, as you said, you can live that happiness, that contentment. You can actually enjoy your day to day. What good is the money and the followers and the clout or whatever if you come back at home and you sit in bed and just everything just comes back?
Exactly. And I think fame's a really important thing to talk about as well. Obviously, like, you know, it's a very small amount of people compared to the rest of the world who are famous.
Oh, yeah. Minute.
Tiny. But they're also the most watched people in the world.
Yeah.
And I think fame would be so just devastating for so many people who are not ready for it. And I guess people will go, well, fucking don't be famous then. Well, a lot of it comes from, you know, exactly. It's what they need to do. They're creative people. They're creators. You know, they want to make music. Like Amy Winehouse, one of the best singers of all time, one of the best songwriters of all time. Could she handle the fame? No. Couldn't handle the fame, and she didn't deal with her shit, and she fucking died. 27. But you know, and that's happened to a lot of people. Mac Miller, fucking so many fucking great artists. Heath Ledger. And so I think that's a really important thing. Obviously, we won't get too far into it, but I think, fame and money, I think really people need to look at that as not a end game for anything. Like that's I mean, it's nice. It would be nice to have, but, the reality of it is it doesn't solve everything. It doesn't solve everything.
Those are the main things that, like,
money can solve a lot of shit. It can
solve a lot of external problems, but a lot of
not
time,
internal.
if your internal is fucked up, I'd say the only external thing, like in your surrounding world, that I would say uncontrollably affects your internal is not bad experiences with people. Like, you have a bad experience with someone in the shop. If your internal is good, you can blow that off or whatever. But if you're consistently around negative people who are bringing you down, I feel like no matter how much like conscious effort you put into, as I said before, state setting and changing your identity. Well, for starters, if you change your identity, you won't be around people like that. But if you're trying to change right now, you're actively trying to let go of this stuff and become the true you, and you have negative people holding you down, I don't have high hopes. It's such, other people's energy affects us so much. Like, you know how they have the quote of like, if you're hanging around like 4 broke people, you'll be the 5th or whatever. It's so true, not just in financial and all that, but if you're hanging around 4 unhappy people, you'll be the 5th. If you're hanging around 4 people who have no ambition, you'll be the 5th. Yeah,
we actually just spoke about that last week, me and Tom, on here. And, it's very true. I really do believe that. You need to, I think that your friends especially have a huge impact on who you become as a person, and you to them as well. So I guess we'll wrap it up, but I'll give you the floor, just basically based on what we've talked about with trauma, the subconscious mind, mental health, and I guess getting to a point of content and happiness and living your true authentic self. Anything you want to say to people listening and watching, take it away.
100%. Just to summarize it and all that, I could summarize it with a 3-letter word, just why. Look, like, I want this, why? And developing that, there's like a few stages that you can go through. The first stage would be developing the emotional awareness of like, okay, I'm trying to figure out what's kind of fucking my shit up. And that you get that through meditation, you get that through journaling. Every time you get triggered, like there's a moment where you're like proper fucked up, writing in your notes in your phone or whatever, trying to figure out the deeper thing. And then once we get to the stage where we figure out what these problems are, because once you figure it out, they don't just evaporate straight away. It's like, oh, how often do you see that? It's like, oh yeah, I know I got this problem, but fuck it. Like, awareness does a lot of the releasing, but you have to put the conscious effort in. So then once you've done the releasing, which there's the one book I would recommend for that is Letting Go by David R. Hawkins, I'm pretty sure. He goes into detail of how to release emotion and all that from your body. So you have to release it from the body, and then you also have to reprogram your mindset. And that is through repetition, that's through journaling, that's through catching yourself where a negative thought comes in. And that's biologically how you reprogram your mind as well. Like how Joe Dispenza says, thoughts that wire together, fire together, which means that the more you think a certain thought, that brain circuit is getting stronger. So every time you catch that and create a new one, your new one's getting stronger. So then you reprogram your mindset and you're pretty much there. Then you've designed a life, you've designed a person. This isn't designing an avatar of like, oh, famous, attractive or whatever, but in your social interactions, in your day-to-day, in your thinking just by yourself driving home or whatever, it's positive. It's something aligned to you. And to all the people out there who just have that exhausted feeling of kind of like, I've never truly felt like I've lived. I never truly felt like I started. I'm not saying live as far as like the Instagram thing of like jumping off waterfalls and all that type of shit. Like truly just being yourself and enjoyed your day-to-day and actually had an appreciation for the present. Like, please look into this because this will change your whole thing.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, I'll leave it there.
Thank
you very much for joining me.
I enjoyed it, bro. This was perfect.
And remember, guys, speak free with Matty G.